Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the soft dawn air of ancient Egypt, where the sun is barely nudging its first rays across the desert sky, and the air is still cool enough that you almost forget the heat that will come pounding later. You are about to step barefoot onto sandy earth, hear the distant bleating of goats, and then make your way down toward the Nile. This is where laundry day begins. No washing machine beeping, no dryer sheets fluttering, just people hauling bundles of linen and jugs of water, preparing for hours of repetitive but oddly soothing work. You probably won't survive this kind of chore if you're spoiled by modern detergents and spin cycles, but let's pretend you do. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, post your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing just how wide awake the world is while you're winding down. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle toward the riverbank, and the Nile greets you like an old, reliable friend. Its waters roll endlessly, shimmering with early light, carrying silt that makes the nearby soil fertile. The river is life, of course. It grows crops, ferries boats, and yes, takes on the important duty of swallowing everyone's dirty laundry water. You sit down with a bundle of linen, the kind that scratches a little at first, but softens with each wear. Linen is all the rage here, spun from flax stalks pulled out of muddy fields. It wrinkles if you so much as look at it wrong, so laundry is never ending. A group of washerwomen gathers near you, chatting with a rhythm that almost keeps time with the slap of wet cloth against smooth stones. It's not entirely unlike the sound of people clapping hands at a festival, except much duller, more domestic. Historians still argue whether ordinary men did their own washing, or whether it was mostly left to women, servants, or specialized workers. The records are spotty, and honestly, if you're standing here watching, you're beginning to suspect it was a whoever loses the argument sort of task. Your hands sink into the Nile water, cool at first, then slowly warmed by the sun. You drag fabric through the river, lifting it, squeezing, and letting the silt wash away. The process isn't glamorous, but it's ritualized. Laundry starts early, because once the sun climbs high, the heat becomes merciless, and no one wants to be beating shirts on rocks while being slow roasted. Nearby, a young boy tugs at the sleeve of his mother, asking why linen never seems to stay clean for long. You smile. He's just voiced the eternal laundry complaint across human history. The woman shrugs and keeps scrubbing. Soap is not in sight just yet. For now, it's a matter of rinsing and beating, of muscle and repetition. Every so often, you hear laughter ripple along the bank. Laundry, it seems, doubles as social time. You think about how, in your modern world, laundry is usually solitary, hidden in machines, behind closed doors, maybe with earbuds in. Here, it's collective. People share news, trade gossip, and probably complain about Pharaoh's latest decree. Imagine standing ankle-deep in the Nile, while also hearing about who borrowed whose donkey without permission. It's a full service. Washing plus neighborhood bulletin board. You notice some men hauling larger garments, longer robes, maybe temple cloths, that need special care. These aren't just shirts with tomato sauce stains. Some pieces are tied to religious rituals. Temples required fresh, pure linen to clothe statues of gods. Laundry then wasn't just domestic, it had cosmic weight. The god statue might need its garment changed daily, which meant priests or their assistants had to organize ritual wash cycles. Suddenly, your own laundry pile back home doesn't feel so intimidating. At least you don't have the fate of the divine wardrobe on your conscience. The sun is climbing higher now, sending shafts of light across the river. You notice how the colors of the fabrics change as they're wet. Linen goes from pale beige to a darker, almost silvery shade underwater. When beaten against smooth stones, the droplets scatter like tiny jewels, brief sparks of beauty in what is otherwise a very practical act. You realize that laundry here is not just cleaning, it's maintaining order. Egyptians prized cleanliness, even in a land where dust and sweat were constant companions. To appear freshly laundered, clothed in white linen, was to project dignity. One quirky tidbit floats into your thoughts. Ancient Egyptians also bathed frequently, far more often than their medieval European descendants thousands of years later. They shaved heads to avoid lice, oiled their skin, and washed clothes with near ritual zeal. Imagine going back in time and trying to explain to an Egyptian noble that centuries later, European aristocrats would consider bathing optional. The noble would probably faint right into the Nile, which, to be fair, might be the cleanest place to faint. A donkey brays in the distance, reminding you that life around the laundry goes on. Boats glide lazily on the Nile behind you, fishermen tossing nets. Somewhere, temple bells signal the start of daily offerings. You're part of a small but vital routine. And as you rub fabric against stone, you start to fall into the rhythm. Dip, squeeze, slap, repeat. It's oddly meditative, hypnotic even. The gossip hums in the background. The river flows steady, and you, somehow, don't mind the work. Historians still debate whether laundry was always done in the Nile itself, or sometimes in special basins near homes. The evidence suggests both, depending on class and context. But standing here, you feel like the river offers more than just convenience. It offers connection. To wash here is to participate in something that spans across villages, families, and centuries. Laundry, humble as it is, becomes a shared act of survival, and strangely enough, identity. You pause, wring out a piece of cloth, and hold it up to the sun. Droplets slide down your arm, cool and gritty. You think back to the crocodile dung sunscreen people supposedly used, and you try not to imagine what laundry day must have smelled like if someone spilled a jar of that onto their tunic. You laugh quietly to yourself. The first stage of the day's laundry is nearly done. The rinsing, scrubbing, the socializing. Soon, the fabrics will be spread wide across reeds or laid on flat rocks to dry in the fierce sun. But for now, you're ankle deep in the Nile, rhythm steady, hands busy, as ancient Egypt unfolds around you in quiet, ordinary detail. Your arms ache faintly from the endless wringing, but you hardly notice because now comes the part that transforms ordinary rinsing into something more curious. It's time to bring out the soap. Except, of course, it isn't really soap the way you know it. There's no squeaky plastic bottle with a lemon logo, no chemical foam that smells like mountain breeze. Here, in ancient Egypt, you reach for a little heap of gritty white powder, natron. Natron is a naturally occurring salt mixture, pulled straight from dry lake beds. You pinch some between your fingers, and it feels sandy, a little coarse, and vaguely sticky if damp. Egyptians used it for almost everything: cleaning wounds, preserving mummies, and yes, scrubbing dirty tunics. It's like the duct tape of the Nile Valley. If you have a problem, natron is your guy. You sprinkle some over a wet linen strip and begin to rub. The powder grinds against the fibers, scouring out sweat and oils. You can almost hear your clothes sigh in relief. Historians still argue whether natron was the everyday go-to for laundry or whether people saved it for more important fabrics. Some say cheaper substitutes, like simple ash from cooking fires, may have been used for ordinary clothes. Either way, what you're holding is effective, though probably rougher on the skin than your favorite hand lotion. A woman nearby is using something else altogether. She scoops up fine clay from the riverbank, mixing it with water until it becomes a slippery paste. It looks like mud, but it works almost like modern clay face masks. Applied to linen, it absorbs grease and dirt. You wonder if anyone accidentally confused laundry clay with beauty clay and showed up to a party with streaks of soap still on their cheeks. It wouldn't be the strangest fashion moment in history. Then there are the quirky recipes you overhear being passed around like secret family hacks. Some people swear by plant saps. Others mention that certain desert plants foam slightly when crushed, which makes them ideal natural detergents. And then, of course, you catch wind of one particularly eyebrow-raising idea: using animal fat mixed with alkaline salts to create an early form of soap. That's right, proto-soap, long before Procter & Gamble showed up. It sounds brilliant on paper, but you can't help picturing yourself trying to explain to your neighbors why your tunic smells faintly of goat. You take a moment to sniff the linen you're working on. It smells mostly of wet grass and river water, with maybe a hint of something briny. It's not fresh lavender meadow by any stretch, but it's serviceable. Egyptians valued appearance over artificial scents. Cleanliness was tied to purity, especially in religious life. If your linen was spotless, you looked respectable. Nobody cared if you didn't smell like a Yankee candle store. While you scrub, you think about how laundry chemicals have always been double-edged. Natron cleaned, yes, but it could also irritate skin if overused. Imagine raw hands, cracked knuckles, and a constant sting after hours in the sun. Laundry wasn't just boring. It could be physically punishing. You flex your fingers and thank every inventor who ever made fabric softener. There's a quirky tidbit here that feels like it belongs in a comedy sketch. Some sources suggest urine might have been used in laundry processes in other ancient cultures, thanks to its ammonia content. There's no strong evidence Egyptians did the same, but the idea of someone proudly announcing, "Oh yes, my tunic is ammonia washed," is almost too vivid. You glance at the water and silently hope you're not standing downstream of any experimental laundromats. The conversation along the riverbank shifts from gossip to technique. A woman brags that her mixture of natron and crushed date seeds gets whites brighter. Another scoffs and insists that simple elbow grease is all that matters. You realize that humanity's greatest debates, cats or dogs, Android or iPhone, rinse or repeat, have always existed, just in different forms. Laundry tips were probably the TikToks of their day, shared, argued over, and promptly stolen by your neighbor. You press your palm hard into the fabric, grinding powder deeper into the weave. The fibers creak faintly, like they're protesting. Ancient linen was durable, but not indestructible. Over-scrubbing meant your favorite kilt might wear thin faster, which wasn't ideal in a world where fashion shopping meant bartering with weavers, not ordering 2 sizes online, just in case. Historians still puzzle over just how many recipes existed, how many regional tricks were passed down and forgotten. Records mention natron often, but household improvisations rarely made it into formal texts. So, as you kneel by the Nile, you're filling in the gaps with your imagination, thinking of Egyptian mothers teaching daughters their best stain removal hacks, or priests quietly passing down the recipe for keeping temple cloths immaculate. Somewhere, there was probably even an ancient laundry influencer bragging about spotless folds. The work continues steadily. A pile of clothes, now laced with gritty powders and splotches of clay, sits ready for its second rinsing. Your arms ache more now, but the rhythm of it is hypnotic. Dip, scrub, rinse, repeat. You realize you could almost drift off, listening to the sound. Water rushing, stones thudding, voices carrying in the morning air. As you glance around, you spot a priest's assistant, carefully separating temple linens from common garments. These are washed with extra care, perhaps with natron only, to ensure no impurity lingers. You realize again how laundry wasn't just domestic, it touched the divine. Fresh garments were offerings, and every grain of natron, every drop of Nile water, carried ritual meaning. Your own soggy tunic suddenly feels slightly more holy. The sun climbs higher, and you wipe sweat from your brow. A little grain of natron sneaks into your mouth. It tastes unpleasant, to put it mildly. You gag slightly, then laugh at yourself. Ancient laundry hacks. Effective, but not edible. Add that to the growing list of things you should never try to snack on, right beside crocodile dung sunscreen. You pause, stretch your back, and let your gaze drift over the river. Fishermen pull in nets shimmering with silver flashes. Children splash farther downstream, unconcerned with the sanctity of laundry day. The Nile flows on, oblivious to your sudsy battle against stains. And yet somehow, this blend of water, salts, and chatter feels deeply human. Proof that even thousands of years ago, people were wrestling with grass stains and sweat marks just like you. Soon, the rinsing will resume, and the sun will take its turn as dryer. For now, though, you linger in the gritty, salty world of ancient soaps and quirky cleaners, realizing that even in the simplest chores, history leaves fingerprints. Your hands ache pleasantly as you haul the last dripping tunics from the Nile and spread them out to dry. Here's where the magic shifts from scrubbing to something almost artistic: drying, folding, and arranging the wardrobe. The Egyptians, practical as they were, knew exactly how to turn a soggy mess into crisp, respectable linen. You lay a garment across a flat rock, its fibers shining wetly in the sun. Linen loves the light. The Egyptian sun, unrelenting and generous, works faster than any modern tumble dryer. Within minutes, the fabric lightens, the damp, dark streaks shrinking until only pale cloth remains. You run your fingers across it, still damp at the edges, but already warm to the touch. You think about how today we run machines that guzzle electricity, and here, thousands of years ago, people simply trusted the desert sky to handle the load. Environmentally friendly, but with the small downside of maybe losing a tunic to a sudden gust of wind. The riverbank looks like an outdoor fashion show. Rows of tunics, kilts, and sheets spread across stones or draped on reed frames. They flutter like banners of white and beige, punctuated by darker pieces reserved for laborers. Some say Egyptians even used special drying racks woven from palm, though whether that was common or reserved for wealthier households remains uncertain. Historians still argue whether laundry spread flat on stones was considered more respectable than draping it on bushes. You'd hate to imagine someone's social standing ruined because they chose the bush method. As the heat rises, you see women lifting corners of half-dry garments, flapping them lightly to shake out wrinkles. Linen, stubborn as always, wants to stiffen. The trick is timing. Fold too soon, and you lock in dampness. Wait too long, and the creases harden like papyrus. You stand with your hands on your hips, pretending you're a master strategist, watching the sun, the breeze, and your cloth as though commanding troops. Laundry day is, in its own way, a battle of patience. Nearby, a young man is doing what looks suspiciously like ironing. He presses damp cloth beneath a smooth, rounded stone, applying weight until the fibers flatten. It's the ancient cousin of your steam iron, minus the electricity, the steam, and the inevitable burned shirt. You wonder if he ever dropped the stone and had to explain why Father's temple robe now has a suspicious round dent. And then comes folding. You kneel, pick up a sun-warmed kilt, and carefully crease it. Egyptians adored linen, not only because it was cool in the blazing heat, but also because it took dye poorly. Most garments stayed pale, which meant neat folds and crisp edges mattered even more. If the color palette is limited to white and slightly off-white, your only chance at flair is presentation. Fold your kilt like a pro, and suddenly you look like someone important. Mess it up, and you're just another sweaty villager. You recall that higher status Egyptians had linen of finer weave, practically see-through. Priests and nobles especially prized ultra-thin garments, the kind that looked delicate enough to melt in the sun. Folding such pieces required real care, because one wrong twist and the cloth puckered like a bad bedsheet. Meanwhile, workers made do with rougher cloth, sometimes folded once and tossed into baskets without fuss. There's a quiet hierarchy visible even in piles of clean clothes. At your feet lies a reed basket, the Egyptian laundry hamper, woven tight, sturdy, and perfectly sized for folded stacks. You imagine the satisfaction of slotting garments inside, edges aligned, each layer sitting like bricks in a miniature pyramid. There's a calming ritual to it. One fold, then another. Tuck the corner, press the stack. It feels a little like origami, except your paper is linen, and instead of cranes, you get piles of respectable tunics, and laundry doesn't stop at home. In temples, linen had special meaning. Priests changed clothes multiple times a day to remain ritually pure, which meant someone, likely many someones, spent their lives washing and folding endless white garments. Imagine being on temple laundry duty. The gods demand perfection, and you're there muttering under your breath about grass stains. It gives new perspective to the phrase divine service. As you continue folding, you remember how clothes weren't just clothes. They signaled rank, occupation, and piety. A peasant's rough kilt, folded loosely, contrasted sharply with the immaculate pleats of a nobleman's robe. Some scholars suggest pleating techniques were an entire skill set, possibly even a specialty trade. If true, somewhere in ancient Egypt, there was probably a self-important pleat master boasting about his flawless folds, the way people today brag about latte art. You tuck another garment into the basket and notice a woman sprinkling water lightly over a finished fold. She pats it smooth, as though refreshing it for storage. It's not so different from misting your laundry before ironing, a reminder that cleverness is timeless. You can't help but smile, imagining an Egyptian merchant, centuries before fabric softener, carefully spritzing his tunic to impress clients. And then there's the question of perfume. Egyptians adored fragrance, crafting oils and resins to an art. Some wealthier households may have dabbed perfumed oil onto folded clothes, letting scent seep in. Was it widespread? Historians still debate, but you picture yourself hugging a noble's robe and catching the faintest whiff of myrrh or lotus oil. Not exactly lavender dryer sheets, but close enough. The heat builds, the air wavers, and the Nile sparkles in the distance. Most of the garments around you are nearly dry now. Children run past, threatening chaos, and you can almost hear a mother shouting, "Don't you dare knock over that basket!" The warning feels oddly universal, echoing across centuries. Laundry day rules, apparently, never change. You glance down at your neat pile, each fold sharp, each layer deliberate. There's a strange serenity in it, like assembling order from chaos. You think about how modern life often tries to skip these moments, outsourcing them to machines. But here, kneeling in the sun, folding linen by hand, you realize why rituals mattered. They gave shape to the everyday, turned chores into traditions, and stitched people together in a rhythm older than memory. The baskets fill, the stones empty, and the riverbank slowly transforms from a flapping laundry field back into quiet sand and reeds. A few stray garments still hang, like flags of surrender, but most are packed and ready. The day's labor shifts from watery chaos to ordered stacks, each fold carrying the weight of pride and identity. You pick up the basket, heavier than you expect, and balance it against your hip. The folds press into one another, the linen warm, the faint smell of natron still clinging. You know that soon these clothes will be worn, sweated in, dirtied, and returned to the Nile for another round. Laundry, like the river, never truly ends. It only circles back, again and again. You stagger a little as you carry the basket away from the riverbank, the weight of folded linen tugging at your arms. The path is warm under your feet, packed smooth from countless others who have trudged it before you. Laundry is finished, but its story doesn't end in baskets. It flows onward, into homes, temples, and the subtle theater of daily Egyptian life. You notice how people glance at one another's bundles. Laundry tells stories without words. A small reed basket tucked under the arm, rough cloth folded loosely, signals a farmer. A larger, heavier basket, its contents pale and gleaming, might belong to a priest's household. In a place where status was written into linen threads, laundry wasn't just background work. It was a language of its own. You shuffle through a neighborhood, houses built of mud brick, laundry hung across rooftops and narrow courtyards. The air smells faintly of drying cloth and, faintly less pleasant, the soap clays left behind. Someone chuckles nearby, and you catch snippets of gossip. Laundry day, like coffee breaks in the modern world, doubles as a social club. You kneel beside a group of women who are folding together, their voices rising and falling in soft rhythm. One nudges another and whispers about a neighbor's husband, who apparently has more stains on his robes than decency should allow. Everyone laughs, and you grin too. It seems laundry has always been the stage for petty but harmless amusement. But the stakes could be higher. Imagine temple laundries, long rows of white garments laid out like offerings to the gods. Priests required immaculate linen, changed several times daily to remain pure. That meant a small army of launderers worked constantly, ensuring every fold was perfect. Slip up, and it wasn't just a fussy noble wagging a finger. It was divine disapproval looming over you. Not exactly a relaxing job. You'd probably fold with trembling hands, muttering, "Please, Ra, don't notice the wrinkle." Historians still argue whether this work was performed by household servants, temple staff, or even specialized laundry guilds. Whoever it was, they likely bore more responsibility than their humble role suggested. After all, a priest who couldn't appear spotless might struggle to perform rituals, and a temple that looked disheveled risked offending the gods. Imagine telling the sun, God, his ceremonial kilt wasn't properly pleated. Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. Back in the village, laundry has another role: matchmaking. Yes, really. You linger near a shaded corner where young women fold linen in deliberate view of eligible bachelors. A sharp crease, a tidy stack, a tunic free of stains, all subtle indicators of skill and diligence. Meanwhile, the bachelors lean casually against walls, pretending they're there for conversation. But you notice their eyes keep drifting toward the baskets. It's the ancient equivalent of checking someone's Instagram cooking reels. Oh, she folds tunics neatly? Must be marriage material. Of course, there's the other side: public shaming. Clothes hung out to dry are visible to everyone. A stubborn stain or sloppy fold can earn raised eyebrows. And yes, it sounds petty, but in a society obsessed with order, visible laundry mistakes whispered about one's character. You picture yourself sneaking out at night to rehang a badly folded tunic, muttering apologies to your future reputation. Laundry also wove itself into the cycle of festivals. During major celebrations, homes and temples alike needed fresh linens. Villages buzzed with activity as families washed, dried, and folded in preparation. Linen draped across statues, hung in courtyards, and fluttered along the river looked like a city dressed in clouds. You almost feel the pride of walking through streets shimmering in white, a collective declaration of devotion and tidiness. But here's the ironic twist: not everyone did their own washing. The wealthy often hired others to do it, and occasionally even shipped their laundry to professionals. Imagine a grand estate owner standing there announcing, "Ah, yes, send my kilts downriver to the specialists." You'd be forgiven for rolling your eyes. It's the ancient version of dry cleaning, minus the little plastic tag. Some scholars argue that men may have been more involved than we usually picture. Certain tomb paintings show men scrubbing alongside women, suggesting that laundry wasn't strictly women's work. Maybe it was a shared task in some families, maybe not. Historians still debate whether men's presence was symbolic, practical, or just a bit of artistic exaggeration. You, personally, suspect there were plenty of husbands trying to avoid washing by muttering, "Oh no, the gods require me to rest today." And then there's the fringe tidbit. Some Egyptians believed wearing unwashed clothes could invite illness or bad fortune. Clean linen wasn't only about appearance, it carried spiritual weight. Dirt and sweat symbolized disorder, while freshly laundered garments signaled harmony. You can't help but laugh, because suddenly the eternal parental command, "Go change into clean clothes," feels less like nagging and more like ancient cosmic wisdom. The day stretches on, and you feel the rhythm of laundry folding into life itself. Children are taught to fold early, fumbling with oversized tunics, learning patience in the process. Servants master speed and precision, while nobles fuss over delicate pleats. Everyone, from pharaoh to farmer, participates in the cycle. The Nile provides water, the sun provides heat, and the people provide hands. Together, they create a society where even laundry becomes part of the grand tapestry. As dusk gathers, the riverbank empties, Homes glow with lamplight, and folded garments rest in baskets like quiet treasures. You walk slowly, basket empty now, but your head filled with images of fabric, folding, and chatter. Laundry day is finished. The noise has faded. The only sound left is the hush of the Nile, flowing steady as breath. And now, in the stillness, it's time to let the story soften into a lull.